Welcome to our channel. We're thrilled to bring you our very first video. It was a typical Monday morning. Breakfast was done, and I was at the kitchen table, savoring a cup of coffee while scanning the newspaper. Out of nowhere, my wife said, "Chad, can you put the newspaper down? I need to talk to you." Curious but calm, I folded the paper slightly and gave her a look. She didn't hold back. "I'm leaving you, Chad. I want a divorce." I raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "That's it?" I replied, flipping to the sports section as if it was just another conversation. Her frustration bubbled over. "I'm not joking, Chad. This is serious." I sighed and set the paper down briefly. "Look," I said bluntly, "there's nothing to talk about. Goodbye. Honestly, it's no big loss. You haven't exactly been wife of the year lately." With that, I stood up, left the table, and went to my office. I grabbed a notebook, a pen, and an envelope from my desk drawer. Then I returned to the kitchen, ready to wrap things up on my terms. I pulled out a notebook and wrote on the first page, "Tyrone, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank God she's leaving me." The thought brought a smirk to my face. As I prepared to tuck the note into an envelope, an idea struck me. I grabbed one of the lottery tickets I'd bought the night before and slid it in as well. Beneath the note, I scribbled, "Maybe if you're lucky and win, it'll be enough to keep the cheaters happy so she won't stray again. Good luck, kid, you'll need it." I signed it off with, "A very grateful Chad," folded the paper neatly, sealed it in the envelope, and handed it to Kathy. "When you see him, make sure he gets this," I said with a calm but firm tone. Her jaw dropped as she stared at me, speechless. "You know," I added with a smirk, "just because you think I'm clueless doesn't mean I am." She tried to recover, but I wasn't done. Reaching for the envelope, I said, "Actually, I'll mail it myself. I don't trust you not to read it, toss it, or pull something sneaky." I leaned back in my chair and gestured toward the door. "Now, why don't you go pack your stuff and get out of my life? And since you're leaving, you'd better be out of the house ASAP." Kathy shot back, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm not moving out just so you can bring someone else in." I didn't even flinch. Standing up, I grabbed my travel mug, poured in some coffee, and topped it off. "Suit yourself," I said as I grabbed my keys and left for work. On my way, I made a quick stop at the bank. I closed our joint savings and checking accounts, emptied the safe deposit box, and then went to a different bank near my office. There, I opened new accounts under my name alone. Next, I canceled all our shared credit cards and requested replacements in my name. By the time I reached the office, my personal finances were locked down. The rest of the day was business as usual. I stayed late at work, had dinner and drinks with my executive assistant, and casually mentioned how life was taking an interesting turn. Let me know if you'd like further changes, or if this version works. Here's the rewritten version, maintaining the established tone and simplifying where needed. I was officially back on the market, and Maria wasted no time teasing me about it. "If her sister is still interested," I joked, "let her know I'm available." Maria laughed, leaning in slightly. "Forget my sister," she said playfully. "If you're single again, I want to be first in line." Maria had been with me for years. She started as a secretary a decade ago, quickly proving herself invaluable. 4 years ago, I promoted her to assistant, and 2 years ago, she became my executive assistant. I recalled a backyard barbecue I hosted one Sunday. Maria couldn't make it at first because her sister, Tara, was visiting from out of town. I suggested she bring Tara along. Tara was an eye-catching blonde with a bubbly personality, and on Monday, Maria joked that her sister had developed a crush on me. I laughed it off at the time, warning her, "Never let Kathy hear about that. She's got a jealous streak." But now Maria was making it clear that she was interested in me, and I had never seen her in that light before. "All right," I said with a grin. "Tara can move to second place, and you can have first." Maria's expression turned serious. "I'm not joking, boss. I mean it. I want to give us a try." I leaned back, surprised. "Maria, you might not feel that way once you hear what's going on in my life." "Try me," she said confidently. "Well, Kathy wants a divorce, and I'm leaving her the house. I'm not sure what her timeline is, though. It probably depends on her lover." Her eyebrows shot up. "Her lover?" "Yeah," I admitted. She started sleeping with him about a year and a half ago. I think she finally decided part-time isn't enough and wants to go full-time. And you've known for that long? Maria asked, stunned. Almost from the beginning, I said. How? A friend of mine spotted her walking into a motel with a guy and called me. I hired a private detective to follow her for a week, and he gave me all the proof I needed. Maria shook her head, still processing. A year and a half and you didn't do anything about it? I shrugged. What was I supposed to do? Blow up my life? In this state, divorces are no fault. Everything gets split 50-50 and I'd have to sell the house. It just wasn't worth the chaos. Let me know if you'd like more adjustments or another spin on this. Here's a rewritten version of your provided section, keeping the tone consistent and maintaining depth. Splitting the proceeds with her meant giving up the pool, the hot tub, my woodworking shop, and the 3-car garage. The thought of moving into some cramped apartment didn't appeal to me. So, I made the decision to ignore her affair, let her keep playing house, cooking meals, doing my laundry, and keeping the place clean. Maria was appalled. How could you live with her, knowing she was cheating on you? You'd be surprised how quickly love can turn to hate, and hate to indifference, I replied calmly. But a healthy guy like you, a year and a half without sex? That's hard to believe. Who said I went without? As long as Kathy was offering, I was taking. Sure, it wasn't as frequent, and I avoided her on days I knew she'd been with him. Other than that, the only difference was I stopped making love. It was just sex. Do you know why she did it? No idea, I said, shaking my head, but I doubt he's her first. Over the last 10 years, she's had these moods, 4 times that I can recall. She acted the same way she has over the last year and a half. My guess? It was for the same reason. If my friend hadn't seen her and tipped me off, I'd have written this off as another one of those women's things. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't matter. I know about this affair, and that's enough for me. She's a cheater. Maria leaned closer. What are you going to do now? Wait. Wait? For what? To see what her next move is. I've already emptied the bank accounts, canceled her credit cards, and told her to leave. She wants a divorce? Let her figure out how to make it happen. She doesn't earn enough to support herself, let alone hire a lawyer. She'll have to ask her lover for money, and who knows if he'll even give it to her. I'm assuming they discussed all this before she dropped the bomb on me, but I really don't know. Maria frowned. You're thinking about this all wrong, Chad. How so? If you wait for her to file, she's in control. She could serve you papers and flip the situation in her favor. What if she claims mental or physical cruelty and gets a restraining order? She could have you out of the house while she moves in. You need to take charge, boss. Be the one to file first. Make her react to you, not the other way around. I mulled it over as she continued. What if her lover doesn't give her the money to file? You'll both be stuck in limbo, and she could turn it around on you later. She cheats, but then she accuses you of adultery if you move on. Filing first puts you in control. It declares the marriage over, and legally, what you do from that point isn't her business. Sure, it's still technically adultery until the divorce is finalized, but courts don't hold it against you if it happens after the filing. I smirked. So, are you saying I need to keep my distance until something's in motion? Maria's grin was sly. I'm saying, if you wait for her, you're playing her game. File tomorrow, and by the weekend, we can focus on us. What's the point of me being first in line if I don't get to take advantage of it? She had a point. I pulled out my phone and speed-dialed Alex, a family lawyer I'd known since 3rd grade. When he answered, I got straight to the point. Alex, I need your help. Kathy wants a divorce, and I'm ready to move on it. He sighed. That's rough, Chad. Sally and I like Kathy, but I'll handle it. Come by the office tomorrow at lunch to sign the paperwork, and we'll grab a bite after. Before hanging up, I added, Oh, and Alex? I want a restraining order, too. Are you serious? He asked, laughing. Dead serious. She told me her lover, Tyrone, would handle me if I gave her any trouble. It was a lie, but it sounded convincing enough. Alex chuckled. You're full of it, but fine. I'll get it done. You know there'll be a hearing within 10 days, right? That's fine, I assured him. I just need her out of the house for now. We don't have kids, so there's no real reason for her to stay. All right, he said. I'll see you tomorrow. When I hung up, Maria leaned back, clearly pleased with herself. So, what's the plan for this weekend? Her ideas were compelling. I didn't need much convincing. Later, when I got home, Kathy was still sitting at the kitchen table, going through some papers. "Why are you still here?" I asked, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "This is my house too," she snapped. "I'll stay here until I can make other arrangements. If you don't like it, feel free to move out." "Not a chance," I shot back. "Sit down and let's figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out," she said. "You wanted a divorce, so go get one. Hire a lawyer, file the papers, and cover all the court costs. Just know this, I'll fight you for every little thing. You want the coffee table? Guess what? I want it too. The couch? Too bad, Kathy. It has a sentimental value now." She glared at me, her frustration evident. "You didn't care about any of this before. You didn't even react when I told you I wanted a divorce." "Why would I?" I said, taking a sip of my beer. "You're not worth the energy. You just told me to pack up and leave without giving me a chance to think it through. When I looked into your eyes, I took a risk. I gave you a break the first 3 times because you didn't want a divorce. I loved you enough to keep quiet and stay because you always came back to me. But when I mentioned those first 3 times, you turned away. That confirmed what I already suspected. I'm not sure why I stayed with you. I never filed for divorce because I thought maybe I had done something to really upset you, something that made you feel like you needed to get back at me. And I foolishly thought you'd end your affairs and come back because you realized you loved me. I looked down at my shoes and saw the mess on them, and I thought this thing with Tyrone was just like all the times before, but now I see I was wrong. I've come to realize that you're just a cheater. If you hadn't left me for Tyrone and ended things with him, you'd have found some other guy to be with in 6 months or a year. Thinking about it, I realized I wanted revenge. What I really wanted was to grab a thick belt and hit you until your skin broke and you bled, but I knew that would land me in jail. So the only thing I could do without getting arrested was make this divorce as hard and expensive as possible for you. You're right. This is your home too. If you've decided to stay, I have to let you. But I don't have to like it. I don't have to talk to you. Move your things into one of the spare rooms and stay out of my way. I finished my beer and went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom to get ready for bed. I felt like I had done what I set out to do. I gave you something to think about. You'd have to talk everything over with Tyrone and make decisions, and that would take time. Time that Alex would use to serve Kathy and get the restraining order. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I thought. Here's the rewrite of the second section with a more approachable tone and simplified language. Maybe Kathy had already met with a lawyer, and the divorce papers were on their way to me. But I suspected I had already taken the last of our money when I canceled the credit cards. It wasn't a surprise. When I withdrew the cash, I figured that's how it would go. If she had seen a lawyer, she'd have used our money to pay for it. Of course, Tyrone could have covered the cost, but all I could do now was wait and hope that Alex would take the first step. I left the house before Kathy came out of her bedroom. I went to a bed and breakfast cafe for breakfast. While sipping my coffee, I made a list of people I'd need to call once Kathy was served. I wasn't going to let her make me the villain in all of this. I would tell everyone about the divorce and explain what really happened. At work, Maria mentioned she was looking forward to the weekend, and I realized I was too. I met with Alex for lunch and signed the papers. He told me he'd head to the county building right after to file the petition. "You still want her served at work?" he asked. "Damn right I do. I think around 10 tomorrow. Call me as soon as it happens. I want the locks changed before she can come back home." I returned to work and arranged for the next day off. Before leaving the office, I called a locksmith and set up a quick service for the following day. It cost a little more, but it was worth it. When I got home, Kathy's car was in the driveway, but she must have stayed in her room because I didn't see her. I left the house again before she came downstairs and went to the cafe for breakfast. "Nah," the waitress asked where Kathy was. "I always saw you two together, but here you are 2 days in a row without her." "You won't see us together anymore?" I replied. "We're splitting up." "I see," she said, placing my order down. As she handed me the bill, she added, "My phone number's on the back, not the restaurant's number. Mine." I was speechless as Na walked away. 2 women in 2 days had shown interest in me. So why wasn't I enough for the woman I married? I'd never know. I'd never ask. I could cross those 2 off my friends list. Kathy's parents were the most upset by the news. They tried to tell me I must be mistaken. I always liked them, and they treated me like the son they never had. But I wasn't going to let Kathy tell them her side and make it seem like it was all my fault. If I did that, they'd think badly of me, and I wasn't about to let that happen. After dealing with the calls, I went through the house one last time to gather Kathy's things, then made myself some lunch. I had just finished eating when the guys from AR Security showed up. Clearly, they didn't trust me at all and were certain Kathy would violate the restraining order and try to break into the house. I decided to install a security system complete with cameras. After Kathy's actions at work on Thursday, I told Maria we were ready for the weekend. She smiled, clearly excited. Tomorrow night? Dinner? This rewrite simplifies the language, making it more straightforward and conversational, while keeping the key points of the original section. Let me know if you'd like further tweaks or adjustments. Here's a rewrite of Section 4, simplifying the language and making it more conversational while keeping the main details intact. When I got home, Kathy did exactly what I expected. She took some of her things and then broke into the house through the garage. The kitchen was a mess. Plates and glasses were smashed all over the floor. In the living room, several lamps were broken. But what made me smile was seeing her pull all my clothes out of the closet and pile them on the floor, then pee on them. All of this was caught on the security cameras, proving not just that she violated the restraining order, but that she was acting maliciously. This was solid evidence I could use in the hearing. I called Alex and he contacted the police. They arrived, took a report, and snapped some photos. The next day, Kathy was arrested at work and taken to jail. She was fingerprinted, photographed, and brought before a judge, facing charges for violating the restraining order and willful destruction of property. To my surprise, the judge set a hearing date and released Kathy on her own recognizance. Despite the chaos, my date with Maria went well. We scheduled a second date for Saturday, and that went well too. By Sunday, we had a lovely picnic together. On Monday, there was the hearing for the restraining order. When the judge saw the security footage, he not only made the restraining order permanent, but he also ordered Kathy to pay for the destroyed items, the dry cleaning for my clothes, and the cleaning costs for the bedroom. He gave her 10 days to respond, or she'd face jail time for contempt of court. Just to be a jerk, I hired the most expensive cleaning company I could find to do the job. Unfortunately, Kathy managed to get the money together to do everything the judge ordered. I never got to see her jailed for contempt. The next 2 weeks went by, and Maria and I saw each other often, but things never went further than a few kisses, sometimes intense ones, because we both felt uncomfortable since I was still technically married. Still, we were slowly getting closer. After 6 months, the divorce was finalized. It was a standard no-fault divorce, and everything was split equally. I refinanced the house and bought Kathy's share. I had been saving money in a separate account for a trip I had planned to celebrate our anniversary. Since Kathy had no idea about it, I didn't give her a cent. She also didn't know about the 2 certificates of deposit I had hidden in the safe, bought with my last 2 bonus checks. I had one more small victory. Kathy was awarded alimony for 2 years, or until she remarried, but it was only $100 a week instead of the $500 she had asked for. Alex told me it was because we got lucky with the judges. The judge who handled the restraining order and the one who oversaw the divorce were cousins who apparently discussed their cases. Both had also been cheated on by their wives, so neither of them believed an innocent husband should be punished for his wife's actions. They followed the law, but they didn't go beyond what was required. Whatever Kathy had with Tyrone clearly wasn't that great, because 7 months after the divorce, she was living with her parents. 8 months after the divorce, I was at a bar in the Hilton, enjoying a beer and a steak sandwich for lunch. That's when someone took the stool next to me and asked, "Can I buy you a beer?" I turned to see my ex-wife's former lover. Curious, I invited him to continue. He signaled to Agnes and ordered us both a beer. After she brought them, he took a sip, set his glass down, and stared at it for a few moments. Then he started peeling the label off the bottle, a small pile of label bits forming in front of him. "I didn't mean to screw things up for you," he said, still not looking up. This version keeps the essential details and flow, but uses more straightforward language for clarity. "Let me know what you think, or if you'd like any further changes." After the divorce, life slowly started to feel like it was getting back on track. But things with Kathy weren't over yet. One afternoon I was sitting at the bar at the Hilton, having a beer and a steak sandwich for lunch. That's when I noticed someone take the stool next to me. "Can I buy you a beer?" he asked. I turned to see it was Tyrone, my ex-wife's former lover. I raised an eyebrow but figured I'd hear him out. "Sure," I said, curious to see where this was going. He signaled to the bartender, Agnes, and ordered us both a beer. When the drinks arrived, Tyrone took a sip, set his glass down, and stared at it for a moment. Then he started peeling the label off the bottle, a small pile of bits forming in front of him. He didn't meet my eyes as he spoke. "I didn't mean to screw things up for you," he said quietly. I wasn't sure what to say. It was hard to process. This guy had been the one in my wife's life while I was out of the loop. He'd helped destroy my marriage, and now he was sitting here trying to sound sincere. "I'm sure you didn't," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "But you did." He looked up then, like he was searching for something in my face. "I know. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. It was a mess, you know?" I nodded, but I wasn't interested in hearing his excuses. "It's a little late for apologies, don't you think?" He seemed to understand, and fell silent, swirling his beer. I wasn't sure why he was even talking to me, but I didn't have the energy to fight. I'd already moved on. In a way, this encounter was just another reminder of the past I'd been through, a chapter that had already closed. We talked for a few more minutes. Awkward small talk, mostly. I didn't have any interest in being friends with this guy, but I did appreciate that he didn't push the conversation into more uncomfortable territory. After a while, I stood up to leave. "Take care," I said, nodding. "Good luck with whatever you're doing now." Tyrone watched me leave, and I didn't look back. I was done with that chapter of my life. I was finally free. As I walked away from the bar, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally putting the past behind me. The divorce had been messy, painful, and exhausting, but it had also been a fresh start. I had my own life now. A better life. A life where I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering what Kathy or Tyrone might do next. I had my friends, my career, and, most importantly, my peace of mind. I had made it through the storm, and I was stronger for it. The power of taking control in difficult situations. In-depth explanation. Life often presents situations that feel completely out of our control, whether it's a toxic relationship, a job loss, or a financial setback. However, we always have a choice in how we react. Taking control doesn't mean we can solve everything overnight, but it means we stop being passive victims of circumstance and start making decisions that align with our values and well-being. Example. In the story, the protagonist doesn't just sit back and let Kathy dictate the terms of their divorce. Instead, he takes action. He gets legal help, serves Kathy with divorce papers, installs security systems to protect himself, and even makes sure to control the narrative with friends and family. He chooses to confront the situation head-on, making difficult choices that will eventually lead to his emotional freedom. Actionable takeaway. If you're facing a tough situation, assess your options. Even if you can't change everything, you can always control how you respond, whether it's seeking professional help or setting personal boundaries. Taking control is about empowering yourself to make decisions that protect your peace. 2. Understanding the importance of self-respect and setting boundaries in depth. Explanation. Self-respect is the foundation of all healthy relationships, including the relationship we have with ourselves. Setting boundaries is crucial, especially in emotionally draining situations. Boundaries help protect our emotional energy, and they communicate what we will and will not tolerate from others. When we fail to set clear boundaries, we often find ourselves in situations where we're exploited or disrespected. Example: the protagonist sets clear boundaries with Kathy after her betrayal. He doesn't let her continue to manipulate him or walk all over him. He takes action to make sure she doesn't get away with her actions, setting legal and emotional boundaries. He also limits communication with her to avoid further emotional harm. By enforcing boundaries, he protects his own mental health. Actionable takeaway: if you're dealing with someone who disrespects you or constantly violates your personal space, it's important to set boundaries. Be clear, firm, and consistent about what behaviors are unacceptable. Whether it's telling a friend not to cancel plans last minute or telling a partner not to raise their voice at you, standing up for yourself starts with defining your limits. The consequences of betrayal and trust. In-depth explanation. Trust is a pillar of any relationship, and once it's broken, it's very difficult to rebuild. Betrayal, whether it's cheating, dishonesty, or any form of betrayal, can cause immense pain, leading to feelings of hurt, anger, and confusion. In some cases, betrayal is so deep that reconciliation is impossible. It teaches the hard lesson that trust must be earned and maintained. Example: Kathy's repeated infidelities cause deep emotional damage. The protagonist initially stayed because he loved her, thinking she might return to him. However, over time, the repeated betrayals showed him that Kathy didn't respect him or their relationship. As much as he wanted to believe in her, the trust was permanently broken, and he had to let go of the hope of reconciliation. Actionable takeaway: if you've been betrayed, allow yourself time to grieve and heal, but don't ignore the reality of the situation. Trust takes years to build and only seconds to destroy. Don't be afraid to walk away from someone who continuously betrays you, and recognize that trust is an essential element of any healthy relationship. 4. Personal growth. Through adversity in depth. Explanation: adversity isn't just something to survive, it's an opportunity for personal growth. Every challenge, painful experience, or failure offers lessons that can shape who we are and what we stand for. Going through hardships forces us to confront our fears, refine our goals, and build resilience. It's not the adversity that defines us, but how we rise from it. Example: throughout the divorce process, the protagonist experiences deep pain and frustration, but he emerges stronger. He learns to value his self-worth and stops blaming himself for Kathy's actions. Through the process, he grows emotionally and mentally. The pain of the betrayal becomes a catalyst for him to take control of his life and focus on what truly matters: his future happiness. Actionable takeaway: when life presents adversity, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? It may not be easy, but focusing on personal growth can turn a painful experience into a valuable lesson. Embrace challenges as opportunities to strengthen your resilience, mindset, and determination to keep moving forward. The value of moving on and letting go in depth. Explanation: moving on is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you've invested so much emotionally. But holding on to pain, resentment, or a toxic relationship only prolongs your suffering. Letting go means accepting that some things, no matter how hard you try, are simply not meant to be. It's about making peace with the past and freeing yourself to embrace the future. Example: after the divorce, the protagonist doesn't let anger or resentment toward Kathy control his life. Instead, he decides to move on. He starts dating Maria and enjoys life without the constant weight of the past. When Tyrone unexpectedly shows up, he doesn't react with anger or bitterness. He calmly accepts it, knowing that chapter of his life is over. Actionable takeaway: letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from emotional burdens that hinder your growth. Whether it's ending a toxic relationship, moving past a betrayal, or accepting a loss, moving on allows you to heal. Embrace the future with an open heart, knowing that sometimes letting go is the best thing for you.